Hey guys, how's it going? So today we're going to talk about in-text citations and works cited pages and MLA formatting for your essay. This is something that you guys know how to do, that we've done for 2 years now, but it doesn't hurt to give you a little bit of a reminder, show you some examples, especially with the works cited page, considering some of you may be using secondary sources for this because you're totally available to. So I wanted to show you how to do that if you feel the need. But today your homework is going to be posting your works cited page. So use this video, use the Purdue OWL website, use the things you've learned in the past, type up your works cited page in MLA format. The page number at the top I'm not worried about, even if you don't have a page number right now, or if it just says, your last name 1, that's fine. You probably want to go ahead and put it, but I'm not looking at that necessarily. I'm looking for it being formatted correctly and the citations being done correctly. I'm showing you how to do them today, so they should be right. You can just screenshot the screen once I get to the works cited page and you'll be good. But also the actual citations themselves that you put within the paragraphs. So I'm showing you kind of how, not only how to format these, but how you want to present them. So there are a couple ways. Let me fix this really quickly. So we can paraphrase or we can direct quote. So when you paraphrase something, it means that you're taking it and putting it into your own words. This is something that you guys have probably done with papers before, but without quoting it. Even if you put it in your own words, even if you paraphrase, okay, you have to cite where it came from, because it's not just that you're stealing someone's words, you can steal their ideas, their meaning. So if you tell me Ponyboy draws a direct comparison between the rumble and the way the wolves circle a fight in Jack London's novels, you need to give me a page number so that I know to go find that, okay? And there are a couple ways you can do this. If your only source is The Outsiders, you're just going to put parentheses 143. But if you've got multiple sources, if you're also citing Call the Wild or White Fang or both, you would do this. You would put last name space 143. So this is going to be the last name of your author, space, and then the page number. That's the way you would do it for multiple sources. Again, if you've just got the one primary source, The Outsiders, this is fine, okay? But it comes before the period, in parentheses. You don't have to put P period or page or anything like that. That's not MLA. And again, this paraphrase would be fine. I think it would support a paper on the connection between London's novels and The Outsiders. Ponyboy draws a direct comparison between the rumble and the way the wolves circle a fight in Jack London's novels. That's something he absolutely does. Then, you would give a sentence or two explaining what that means and how it connects the two and all of that. Always explain your quotes and your paraphrases. Don't just put them by themselves and expect me to say, okay, well, yes, but why does that matter? How does that prove your argument? Always take these and use them as support, as evidence for your argument. If you provide evidence, that's great, but you have to connect it to the argument. If we're arguing over whether red or blue is the best color, and I say, more countries use red in their flags than blue, you're going to say, okay, but how does that support your argument? How does that make it better? I have to prove how it makes it better, right? So if you're arguing some connection between London's works like Call the Wild or White Fang or both and The Outsiders, and you give this, yeah, this is a connection. But why does it matter? What about it connects them? Why does it make a difference? Same thing. I've taken a direct quote of the same thing. So, and this is to show you that you don't have to quote something entirely. You can quote it in pieces. So Ponyboy compares the rumble to one of Jack London's novels, saying the scene reminded him of when the wolf pack waits in silence for one of two members to go down in a fight. This, in quotes, is directly from The Outsiders. It's exactly what Ponyboy says, but it's only about the latter half of what he says. He says the bit about it looked like a scene from Jack London's novels and blah, 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 blah. And it's saying the same thing that it says up here, but I'm just showing, using his own words, how he says it. Neither of these two ways is necessarily better than the other in this case. Sometimes you'll want to paraphrase, especially if it's something long that you want to kind of parse down to the core meaning of it. Sometimes if the wording specifically proves your argument, the way the character says it you think makes a huge difference, then you'll want to direct quote it, or if it's a really famous line or something. Like the bit about coming out of the movie theater, thinking about Paul Newman in A Ride Home, that's something you might want to direct quote if that's what you're doing. But here, again, I've introduced the quote. I don't just put in one sentence by itself, blah, 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 the quote. I put Ponyboy compares the rumble to one of London's novels. He's making the comparison, okay? So that's what I'm pointing out here. That sets up my argument. And then again, I'm going to need a sentence or two after this explaining why this matters. Okay, so whether you paraphrase, direct quote, whatever, always explain it. With that said, that gives you an example. And again, after the quotation marks, we've got our page number in parentheses with a period. Same thing if we have multiple sources, we would put Hinton 143. But if it's just the one source, you don't have to. So with that said, let's go to the works cited page. I've just got Jones 3 up here. Presumably it'll be about the third page. I think I'm aligned down. Yeah, I was aligned down. Okay, so works cited, you just center that up. Again, you go up here like you would with a title. You just center align it. Should be similar on Word to Google Docs. And then all of these sources I've done are one line each. Most of the time, if you're doing a book or something, it's going to be one line. The only time you'll get into a couple is if you're doing like journals, articles. Maybe if you're writing research papers one day, you'll have really long sources. Sometimes a website will stretch over a line. And with one that goes over a line, you have what's called a hanging indent, which can be a pain to set up in formatting. But it's basically like if this went over a line, your next line down would start right here. So it would be like blah, 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 which just now I'm realizing this is way easier in Docs than Word. In Word, if I had tabbed over and started typing, it would have jumped the first line over to match it, which is a pain. But here, luckily, none of our sources should be over a line. So these first three are books, the three books that we are concerned with. I've chosen specific versions of the Call of the Wild and Gone with the Wind. Obviously, which version you used as a source would vary depending on would change this citation here at the end. But most of us, I'm assuming, are probably using the same version of the Outsiders. So your outside, and I'm not going to know if you're not. So your Outsider citation should be pretty much that. Okay, so always author last name, first name. In S.E. Hinton's case, she goes by her initials, so that's fine. Period. That second period should probably be there since she goes by initials. If you didn't have the second period, I probably wouldn't notice. The Outsiders in italics because that's the title of the book, period. Then the publisher, Penguin Random House, comma, 1967, the original publication date. You don't have to give a current like republication date or anything like that for this one. I'm fine with this because it's a fairly recent book. Recent with books is past 50, 60, 70 years, which I know is weird for you guys. Would have been weird for me at your age too, but a book that's from 1967 is a pretty modern book in the grand scheme of literature. So Penguin Random House 1967. We don't have to give city of publication. You don't have to put print at the end. That's an old-fashioned thing the MLA has phased out. Again, city of publications only if the book was originally published before 1900 or in a foreign country. None of the books we're dealing with today are like that, so we don't have to worry about that with them. Next, and again, this is all you have to have. I'm not requiring anything else. Just if you're talking about one of these other examples of intertextuality and you want to pull in that secondary source, you want that extra bit of evidence, you feel like I don't really have enough with just the Outsiders. I'm just showing you how to cite those things if you feel that way and you want to go look up some quotes from them or whatever. Next is Call of the Wild. Again, pretty simple. Most of you probably have a copy of this from summer reading. So London, comma, Jack, period. Call of the Wild, italicized, period. Now, this date here is a special case. So if you go on the Purdue Owl website and you see a book's been republished, this I generally only worry about if the book is, more than 50, 60, 70 years old, which Call of the Wild and Gone with the Wind both are. Call of the Wild's over 100 years. Gone with the Wind is 84 based on my head math. So with these, you can put the original date of publication after the name of the novel, okay, after the title. You don't have to put a publisher or anything like that, but the original publication date. So Call of the Wild came out in 1903. Then you'll put the publisher and publication date of the version you're using, which in this case for me would be Seawolf Press 2020. They do nice illustrated versions of Jack London's books. You should check them out. They're pretty cool. I think I have a White Fang copy sitting on my desk at school right now, actually, that I need to get. So, again, this, and if you left off this original publication date, I wouldn't yell at you. You would be fine. But if you go to college, you'll probably want to be doing this or get in the habit of doing this original publication date right after the title if you're dealing with older books. Same thing with Call of the Wild. Margaret Mitchell was the author, so Mitchell, comma, Margaret, period, Gone with the Wind in italics. 1936, so this is when the book originally came out, original publication date. And then Scribner 2011 is the version I'm referencing, which is the version I'm probably about to purchase on Amazon because I need to read that book. But I don't actually own a copy of this, so I am being a giant phony. but that's the version I'm going to read when I get it. So, uh, again, original publication date, publishing house, date of publication. That's all just books. Okay, those are pretty straightforward. And if you left out that 1903 and 1936, I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to take off points at this point. And again, you don't have to cite either of those, even if that's the topic of your paper. So then I put in a Paul Newman reference. Now this is a little bit more complicated. If you go on the Purdue OWL website and go to their MLA formatting guide, I think it's under other common sources. You'll have to scroll down a little ways. I think it's titled like films and something, something, something. But if you're citing a film, if you're citing a movie, there are a few ways to do it. Generally, you don't start with this. Okay, normally you start with the title of the film, you'd go directed by, and then you can put comma performances by and then list off the major actors. I didn't do that here because we're only concerned with one thing really, and that's Paul Newman. So if you're doing it and you're talking specifically about the performance of an actor or specifically about the efforts of the director, you're going to be allowed to put that person first, like an author. Okay, so Newman, comma Paul, the hustler. This doesn't mean he's the author of this movie, but being that it's a film, he's set up as the principal thing we're talking about. That's why he's first. So if you were citing this, you would say Newman in the in-text citation. You wouldn't give a page number, obviously. You would just say Newman in parentheses, like, let me show you. And this is one of the two movies that Ponyboy could have been talking about. There's another one called like HUD or something. I don't remember exactly, but I assume it was probably the hustler that he was talking about. So that's how you do it in an in-text citation, just parentheses, Newman, close parentheses. Again, this is just highlighting his performance is what we're talking about. I think the example the Purdue OWL website uses is actually the original Star Wars in a possible paper that would be talking about George Lucas as a director. So it's Lucas, comma, George, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, blah, 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 because that's focusing on him as a director. If you were focusing on the film itself, again, you would get rid of this. You would start with The Hustler. So films are weird to quote. And then you put, kind of like with publishing house and publication date, like Penguin Random House 1967, you put the studio that published the film, that put it out, the distributor, so 20th Century Fox. You can find this kind of information on Wikipedia, comma, 1961, period. That's the date that it came out. So that's not too difficult. And again, if you use The Hustler, there's your citation. You're welcome. If you use the other one, it would be pretty similar. You would do Newman Paul, HUD, I think it's called, period, directed by whoever directed it, whatever publication house, probably 20th Century Fox, comma, 1963, I think. But again, that's how you do a film. And notice that I've got these set up in order. This is as though I was writing a huge, 8 to 10 page paper on intertextuality in The Outsiders. And I would have all of this set up on the same works cited page. They're in alphabetical order. H, I, J, K, L, M, N, so on and so forth. If I did a Robert Frost collected works, so if I came down here, and you don't have to do that, absolutely not, because Nothing Gold Can Stay is quoted in its entirety in The Outsiders, but if you were going to draw in other Frost references and say that Frost had more to do with it, I could say Frost Robert, I've got a collection of his poems, but I don't remember what it's called. So we might say collected poems just as a generic title. And then whatever the publisher is and the publication date. And that's just to show you that, again, alphabetical order. So Frost would come first. Hinton's not first because it's the primary source, okay? It's all alphabetical order. So that's if we were doing, blah, 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 blah with Robert Frost. Which, again, for this one, don't worry about it. If you're doing Nothing Gold Can Stay, just do The Outsiders. But that's your works cited page. Those are your citations. This is all you absolutely have to do, okay? That is all I'm requiring of you. I'm not requiring secondary sources. We haven't done a lot of that. So don't freak out and think, oh, I've got to be able to cite a film and all this. No, you don't have to. If you want to use these things, here are some examples. Here's how you would do these citations, at least for these specific versions of these books. Pretty straightforward, I think. So today, do a works cited page for me. If it's just as simple as that, but with your last name at the top right corner, and I don't care what the page number says, that's fine. That's full credit. I'm counting it as a quiz grade. I think it's a 20-point quiz grade, which isn't huge, but it's still helpful. If any of you need a good quiz grade, this is an easy way to get a 20 out of 20 on one. So I'm trying to be generous here as the year winds down. But let me know if you have any questions. If you, for some reason, are using some source that I didn't mention here and you don't know how to cite it and the Purdue OWL doesn't help, let me know. I'll look at it and get back to you on it. Try to get back pretty quickly. Like I said, essay is due this Friday at midnight. It's already available to submit on Turnitin. And we are going to have that short answer quiz thing in a couple of days to get one more quiz grade in, try to help our grades out a little bit more. So be ready for that, be preparing for it, and see you guys.